I understood the rules of responsibility, which meant I had to break them to learn the limits of carelessness. So many lessons I learned the hard way ran through my mind, but I found myself thinking about how our plan was simple. We would skip first period and show up by homeroom just like we normally did. So the only mark on our record would be a tardy for the day. As we walked away from the school grounds, one of the guys we were with suddenly said, "Let's skip the whole day. School is dumb and I really want to go to the mall." I knew it was a bad idea. The mall was over 30 miles away. But the next thing I knew, we were on an hour-long bus ride instead of heading to second period. Needless to say, we all got caught. Instead of being marked as tardy, we were marked as absent. The school would call our homes and let our parents know we weren't in attendance. While we were having a good time at the mall, my dad went to the school and sat in each one of my classes, waiting for me to show up. But of course, I never did. Later that afternoon, as I walked down my usual route home, I saw my dad driving by in his loud, flashy 1979 little red Express Dodge pickup. I thought I was being slick for skipping school, unaware that my dad had already attended the entire day. He pulled over beside me and I hopped in, trying to play it cool. "So, how was school?" he asked, keeping his voice even. "Normal, good, I guess," I answered, trying not to let on how nervous I was. He roared back, "Funny, 'cause your math seat seems broken." My mind was racing. How did he know my seat was broken? That meant he was definitely there for last period. I knew nothing I said would matter now. His voice continuing to raise, filling the cab of the truck with rage. That interrupted my thoughts. "And I sat there waiting for you from second period until I saw you walking down the road. So where the fuck were you?" I should have come clean. But instead, I quickly thought on my feet and said, I just didn't feel like going. A junior girl was teasing me about my outfit, and when I realized I missed so much school, I decided to keep walking. Even as I said it, I barely believed myself. Did I just claim I walked around? He didn't buy it. He knew me too well. I was feisty and never shied away from a fight. So why would I suddenly be too scared to stand up for myself? He saw through my lie immediately. I tried to keep my story straight, but the more he grilled me, the more everything fell apart. My lies were stacking up so fast, I couldn't even remember what I'd said 5 seconds ago. I was tripping over my own words, trying to patch one lie with another, until finally he looked me dead in the eye and said, "You can't bullshit a bullshitter, Bethany." That was it. Game over. My parents didn't just call me out. They dissected every lie, one by one, like they were tearing down a wall I'd spend months building. And when there was nothing left to hide behind, I realized it wasn't just some excuse anymore. It was the truth. And it was staring me right in the face. I got grounded, but it didn't stop there. They pulled me out of public school and sent me to Catholic school, even though I wasn't Catholic. One friend's mom packed up and moved them to Vegas. Another got sent to a different Catholic school. Our whole group just came undone. punishment by separation. It felt like the end of the world we had always known. The only one that felt like it was ever mine. So before they split us up for good, we decided to skip one last time. Last period, one joint, the four of us, hiding out at an abandoned drive-in lot. We laughed like we weren't breaking apart, like everything wasn't about to change. It was our last hour of being whole, but the moment we left each other, I felt the weight of my consequences seeping in. I walked home before curfew, stoned and silent, waiting for the punishment I knew was coming. But I wasn't saying a word unless they did, because honestly, what more could they take? Of course they noticed. They could see my bloodshot eyes, and the smell of weed was obvious. I let them yell. I was too tired to yell back, which was out of my normal character. But I was also stoned and expected their rage. They screamed about how I was messing my life up, how I was failing at it. Then my mom made me take a ride with her for an obligatory tour. We skirted the edge of Section 8 complexes, where survival was the only currency. The air was heavy, but not just with violence. It was hopelessness. She pointed out the dealers and the fights, the riffraff, using them as a weapon. This is where your path ends. Her scare tactics were a joke I didn't dare share. She wanted me to see the cliff's edge, but I saw people just trying to get by. The life she feared for me was already one I was secretly stepping into. I had a boyfriend she didn't know about, and for the past 3 months, I had been walking through her danger zone at night, unbothered. I was fearless, not because I was rebellious, but because I understood their struggle. I sat there through her lecture, a performance of pouting compliance, not letting her see the recklessness she expected. The quieter I became, the angrier my parents got. Their anger was volatile. She finally snapped. Do you think we're stupid or something? Thinking you can just come into our house stoned? We were born at night, but not last night. You're gonna learn the hard way. There was no room for anything but extremes in our house, especially when it came to drugs or alcohol. My punishment was swift and amplified. My dad stripped my room of everything, my things, my privileges, my world. All I had left was my new school uniform, a couple pairs of pajamas, and a few socks. It felt like my life had been wiped clean. I laid there that night on my bed, overwhelmed by the emptiness, and cried myself to sleep. I couldn't have cared less about the weight of my lies or how far the truth had spun. Why would I respect a truth that always was dismissed? Every time I tried to be honest, the adults around me, blind to the full picture, just tossed it aside. And how could my mom not see the similarities between the people she used as warnings and the life we were already living? The only real difference was location. It felt like honesty held no value. So I started small, stretching details here and there, exaggerating a bit there, not outright lies, but just tweaks that made stories bigger, the reactions louder, the moments more unforgettable. It was thrilling, like I had found a way to control the narrative and steal the spotlight. But the more I twisted things, The more I twisted things, the blurrier the line between truth and fiction became. I learned how powerful words were, how the way you told a story could shift everything. Sometimes I wanted to lie just to keep the peace. My dad caught every lie, and his zero tolerance for half-truths meant we were always at odds, forcing me to look into the mirror. But I was building a version of myself I never meant to, and the reflection staring back at me was becoming someone I barely recognized. But that's the thing about patterns. Even when we are self-aware enough to notice the shift in behavior, we still don't know how to stop. After all, we are creatures of habit. Months later, I was finally getting used to my isolated new school life. After being grounded, I hit a parked car. I was a new driver, still shaky behind the wheel. The impact was tiny, barely a tap, and the other car looked fine, but my own bumper and headlight told a different story. Panic surged, drowning out any sense, faced with a choice between the truth and self-preservation. I took the path easier and lied. For the first time, that single lie felt heavier than any truth could ever. I don't know what happened, I said, forcing the words out, my hand pointing shakily at the shattered headlight. I came out of the store and someone must have hit me. I knew he could see through the lie. It hung there limp and weak between us, but I kept holding on to it anyway. The truth felt like something I wasn't ready to face. Not yet. My dad's eyes narrowed, and I could feel the weight of his gaze, as if he could already see the cracks in my story. After what felt like an eternity, he finally spoke, his voice slow and heavy with the weight of experience. I was born at night, but not last night. It was a saying he often used when one of his AA friends tried to hide something from him. It was his way of reminding them, and me, that he wasn't easily fooled. He had spent enough years in the trenches of life to spot a lie from a mile away. When you've been through certain things, learn to recognize the patterns. You stop falling for deception. I knew I was caught, but the lie was mine now, and I clung to it like a lifeline. Then he demanded I get in the car, and without a word, he drove me straight to the scene of the accident. The sight hit me like a punch to the gut. My broken car pieces littered the ground. The marks of the impact still raw, a vivid reminder of the chaos I caused. My dad didn't say much, but his silence spoke louder than any rage could. His anger I understood. His silence scared me because I had no clue what the punishment was coming. After a few hours, we came home. After the scene of the accident, there was a knock on the door. I opened it, and there was a cop standing. Totally serious. He didn't smile or explain much. He just pulled out handcuffs and said I was being detained for leaving the scene of an accident. I thought I was going to juvie. My stomach dropped. I could feel my heart beat everywhere. I knew I wasn't a bad person, but I had lied. I panicked and ran when I should have stayed. And in that moment, sitting there in cuffs, all I could think about was how stupid I was to make things worse by pretending they were better. That was the day I realized lying doesn't make life easier. It just makes you smaller, less authentic, less worth trusting. I thought a little lie would protect me, but it only trapped me. and began to write a narrative that did not sit well with my soul. I didn't want to be that kind of person anymore. I didn't want to hide from my own actions or make myself sound better than I was. I knew that the truth had a way of coming to the surface, and telling the truth might be uncomfortable, but honestly, it is way lighter to carry than all the lies I used to hold. The hardest lessons were never the ones I wanted, but they were the ones I needed. Some of us are lucky enough to have parents who love us, not just in the easy moments, but in the difficult ones. When we stumble, when we fail, when we resist the very wisdom they try to offer. They see who we are before we do, pushing us toward growth even when we mistake it for control. Accountability isn't just about consequences. It's the foundation of trust, responsibility, and personal growth. Taking ownership of our actions strengthens relationships, fosters respect, and builds reliability, not just in our personal lives, but in every space we step into. In the workplace, accountability creates productive, dependable teams. In friendships, it deepens connection. In families, it teaches us to show up for one another in real, meaningful ways. The temptation is always there to shift the blame, to point to the outside forces, or to lie and deny responsibility because it feels easier. As a teenager, I learned fast that owning my mistakes was not a punishment. It was the first act of courage. The times I was grounded taught me that responsibility starts and ends with me. My words and my actions were just the reflections of my character. The lesson is simple but powerful. Be anchored in honesty. Be mindful of the choices I make. Never be quick to justify a wrong turn, because the truth, even when it hurts, will always serve me better than any self-protective lie. I understood the lesson clearly, even though I disagreed with them on almost everything. Their rules were laced with hypocrisy and enforced with dictator tactics. For a brief moment, my mind snapped into the present, and I noticed how often I had thought, as a grown-up, I understand, but as a parent, I could never. So many of their choices felt like the opposite of guidance or support. But as I reflected on how this has shaped my strongest moral compass, I realized it was more than just a lesson, because of the impact it made on my soul. I saw clearly how I was meant to break rules, rewrite them, and ultimately break patterns, while still holding the morals they taught me. In this moment, my mind was full of clarity as it continued to run through a history of my own making. Every choice, every mistake, every hard-won lesson, it replayed like a slideshow, a reminder of who I was and who I still had the power to become.